안녕하십니까. 제5기 은평구 청년 네트워크 위원장 변성민입니다. 지금부터 제1회 은평구 청년 국제포럼을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 본격적인 시작에 앞서 진행 순서 안내 및 참여자분 소개를 하도록 하겠습니다. 본 포럼은 1부와 2부로 구성되어 있습니다. 1부에서는 코로나로 바뀐 각국의 청년의 삶을 주제로, 2부에서는 코로나에 대응하여 각국 청년 정책을 주제로 논의를 하고자 합니다. 오늘 참여한 분을 소개하도록 하겠습니다. 우선 해외 국가 청년부터 소개를 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 중국의 장위안, 이탈리아의 프란체스카 니콜, 일본의 스타르마, 싱가포르의 레베카, 그리고 미국의 피터 청년 참석해 주셨습니다. 그리고 한국의 청년 참석자들을 소개드리도록 하겠습니다.
네, 문화예술체육문과장 김아린입니다. 반갑습니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 은평 청년 네트워크에서 편집위원장으로 활동하고 있는 문소희입니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 주거분과 분과장 전봉석입니다.
네, 그럼 본격적인 진행에 앞서 구청장님의 인사 말씀 영상으로 보시도록 하겠습니다.
안녕하세요. 구청장 김미경입니다. 은평구 청년 국제포럼에 관심 가져주신 국민 여러분 반갑습니다. 이번 은평구 청년 국제포럼은 제5기로 은평구 청년 네트워크가 중심이 되어 코로나가 바꾼 청년의 삶을 주제로 타국 청년들의 생활을 들을 수 있는 자리를 마련하였습니다. 코로나로 다양한 청년들이 만나서 소통하기 어려운 상황 속에서 영상을 통해 해외에 있는 청년과의 소통을 추진하였습니다. 이번 국제포럼을 준비해 주신 은평구 청년 네트워크 여러분의 새로운 도전과 열정에 큰 박수를 보내고 이번 포럼이 다양한 청년들이 함께 고민하고 발전해 나갈 수 있는 기회의 장이 되기를 간절히 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
네, 구청장님 좋은 말씀 감사드립니다. 지금부터 본격적으로 포럼을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 코로나는 청년들의 일자리, 주거, 문화, 생활 등 삶 전반에 큰 변화를 가져왔습니다. 이러한 변화는 은평구, 서울시, 그리고 대한민국의 청년뿐만 아니라 해외의 청년들의 삶에도 큰 변화를 가져온 것 같습니다. 같은 시대를 살아가는 청년 세대로서 코로나로 인해 변화된 세계 각국의 청년 현안 및 실태를 알아보고 청년의 목소리로 직접 현상에 대해 들어보며 코로나에 대응한 주요국의 청년 정책들을 살펴보고 은평구에서 참고할 만한 정책적 시사점을 도출해보고자 은평구 국제포럼을 개최하게 되었습니다. 그럼 지금부터 국제포럼 1부 코로나가 바꾼 지구촌 청년의 삶을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 은평구 패널분들의 이야기를 듣기 전 해외 각국의 이야기를 먼저 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
Well, actually, we have a wider range of youth. This is defined in our we have a medium and long-term development plan for youth, which is provided by the State Council, and it clearly defines the range of youth that is 14 to 35 years old. And this is actually a wider range compared to some of the age definition in other countries, because it also includes age period that is under 18, plus an age period of early 30s, when a lot of people, they actually have already successfully built their career. So I think this is a very range definition of age in China. I think coronavirus has changed people's life in various aspects. I think the first thing is that there is a turning point from face-to-face teaching to online teaching and online learning. And now the university has opened a lot of online teaching materials. And for our students, now because everything's back to normal in China, so we're still doing the face-to-face teaching here. And the second thing is that I think the country has also switched the focus from the traditional teaching to a dual teaching system. traditional teaching, higher education system, plus the vocational teaching system. And the government also invited the private sector to invest in the vocational education systems. And third one is that I think young people are more aware of their mental health after the pandemic. And also the country has also allocated a lot of resources on this. For instance, in our university, we have offered a lot of free consultations to the students on their mental health issues, which is not very common before the pandemic. The COVID-19, you know that people are aware that the economic situation is not as good as before. So young people are more aware of their living standards.
So in Italy, similarly to what I saw it was in Republic of Korea, the definition of youth is not regulated by law. Therefore, it varies according to a specific field of application or regulation. And again, it can also depend on municipalities or regions or whoever it is that implements policies or law. However, in general, we can say that the legislation on youth policy, both at national and regional level in Italy, identifies 14 years old as the age limit for which actions cannot apply. So normally they would apply for 15 years old onwards. And however, the upper age limit will vary depending on the specific legislation or the specific measure. For instance, the target of actions of the Department for Youth Policy of Italy is represented in the age group 15 to 28 or 35, depending on the measures. But however, we also have a definition for the Italian National Institute of Statistics that has established that young people, data on young people is connected in the age group 15 to 34. Well, we can definitely start by saying that youth unemployment rates have definitely increased in the year 2020. Despite the overall unemployment rate increase, youth was the most impacted group with an increase of 0.3 percentage point in the overall unemployment, bringing the overall youth unemployment to 29.7% of youth. Another important element, however, to look at in terms of statistics is also the number of inactive youth, which again was raised during 2020 as an effect of COVID. This meaning that it's not only people who are not working, but also people who are not seeking employment. Because I saw that one of the points could have been a residential environment in Italy. So according to the statistics, youth Italians leave their family home very late, normally on an average of 30.1 years. And this is the third to last European country, because the European Union average is actually around 26 years old. So European kids leave their parents' home at 26, whilst in Italy, almost 4 years after, at 30 years old. And this can be explained by a wide number of reasons, including cultural factors of Italian people, but also welfare policies, and of course, the lack of job opportunities, and therefore the income that it's insufficient to live alone and to move out. In fact, economic analysis shows that if youth Italians had a stable job and had a stable income, they would probably move out of their home earlier than that. In addition, it has been noticed that when Italian youth move out of their parents' home, they prefer to live in the periphery rather in the city center, especially when purchasing at home. And this can be explained by a reason. Young people might not be able to afford to either buy or rent in the city center, especially in the capitals, and therefore they decide to live in the surrounding areas. Alongside, it is possible that they also would prefer to live in a house in the periphery that has more space and more comfortable, more rooms, for instance, that you wouldn't be able to find in the city center for the same price. In addition, I would like to talk to you about another change in the life of youth people, it would be mental health. So for this year, psychologists have been sounding the alarm about the consequences of the pandemic. It's on the world population's mental health, but especially for youth. And in Italy, this definitely happens. So the number of depressive episodes, such as anxiety and depression moments, has doubled in the last year, with a percentage up to 35% of all youth Italians having at least one episode of anxiety or depression. This is almost 1 in 3 youth having this type of symptoms since the beginning of the pandemic. And even worse, if the field of research enlarges not only to depression, but also to other types of psychological and psychiatric discomforts, this figure rises up to 40% in young people. So, of course, we can see that COVID had a large impact on the mental health of youth, especially because these were the people who had a very dynamic lifestyle, and they have suffered the most from imposition of restrictive measures.
Okay, so this is actually a little bit difficult because I checked on different government agencies, according to the Japanese government, and sometimes the way that youth is defined actually differs. But the most common one that I found being used in government surveys was age 15 to 34 to define youth. Yeah, I think this has been a really difficult period, and it has impacted young people in so many ways. And one of the reasons is because here, people still live in their family unit far into that period of being a youth. So maybe into people's early 30s or so, they're still living with their nuclear family. So really whole families are impacted by this to such a great degree. But some of the examples would be increased unemployment for young people needing to drop out of school or take time off school, often to look for work to be able to support their family. There's also been a large increase in reported cases of child abuse from people needing to spend a lot more time with their families in small enclosed spaces because homes here tend to be much smaller. Other things related to mental health, such as increase in depression, youth suicide, and other issues related to mental health. So it's been a really difficult time. And one thing that's really affected young people from middle school to college is that most have transitioned to doing school online. And you start to see a lot of inequalities affect people here because there are some people who live in more rural areas who don't even have access to internet, which means that they haven't been able to access education. So those are just some of the examples of the ways that coronavirus has impacted people, especially young people.
Yeah, the range of youth. So based on our ministry, we consider people between the age of 15 to 24 as our youth of the youth of Singapore. So those mostly consist of people fresh out of university. So those straight out tertiary education. That will be the majority of our youth, and those who are doing like temporary part-time jobs in between holidays, or even when they're still schooling, some of them would like to work part-time. To supplement their expenditure while they're in school. So those are what we consider youth. But because it's 15 to 24, a lot of our youth unemployment is actually people who are fresh out of tertiary education. So so that's what the youth range in Singapore is. From a work perspective, it's been a little bit difficult because there hasn't been many opportunities for fresh graduates to go to find jobs, because when we were under a lockdown, circuit breaker as we call it, a lot of the companies had to put a temporary hold on looking for new employees. So a lot of those fresh graduates kind of had to suffer with the issue of trying to find long-term employment or even short-term employment, because the industries that the youth normally go for, the young youth, is F&B and retail. And those are industries that took quite a big hit during Corona because everything was either went online or they reduced the number of staff they need because everyone was made to work from home or study from home. So a lot of those businesses tend to contract, and when they normally during holidays and stuff, a lot of them would look to employ youth for short-term contractual temp jobs, but because of the whole Corona thing, they weren't looking for anyone to employ, and a lot of these youths, didn't have any part-time jobs or anything much to do during the holidays, and so that's one side of the youth. The other ones were the university graduates who, they were kind of lost. They didn't know where they should, when they can start applying for jobs, or when will the job search can start, because we had not that long, but about 2 month circuit breaker where we all had to be indoors, and you can't do the things you normally do, which go one-to-one interviews or go in for an interview or apply for a job. I mean, you can still do that online, but it wasn't carried out as normally as it used to. So yeah, the youth of Singapore had that issue on the work side, but on the sort of the psychological factors, those things, social factors, the youth of Singapore, when you're made to start studying from home or you're made to start working from home for long periods of time, that can naturally take a sort of leave an impact on their mental well-being. So a lot of them had to get used to the fact that you have to home-based learning, digital learning, trying to get used to the fact that you have to study for a major exam to get into university or to get into secondary school. You have to do that from your home through a camera. You don't have the usual help that you would normally have, with the tutoring, the one-on-one tutoring, going to school. So I think they had that sort of mental impact on them. I think you can call it cabin fever when you're made to stay at home for long periods of time with no social interaction. It's kind of isolating, and it can be a bit daunting. And for the fresh graduates, I think when you're in between a pandemic and you don't know whether you can find a job and you just graduated, I think you can feel that sense of hopelessness. You can be a bit uncertain about the future. I mean, we're naturally all uncertain when we graduate, but to graduate during a pandemic, I would think, you start to worry. Industries that you studied in all of a sudden don't have much job opportunities, so now you have to start looking for at adjacent industries for employment. So I think a lot of them had to either change their job scope or change their dreams and aspirations, and I think that can make them feel very disheartened, and that's a psychological impact to it, not just the monetary impact. Everyone always think, Corona affected people's employment capabilities, but I think it affects your psychological capabilities as well. So yeah.
The range of youth in the United States depends on different sources. So to be specific, age range of the youth in the United States, according to a source called youthpolicy.org, is under 25 years old. And another source, the U.S. Census Bureau, which is the government, classifies age range of youth from 18 to 34 years old. And then the last source that I found was that youth.gov, which is also a government website, a government source, says that the age range of youth is 16 to 24 years old. So there are several aspects that I want to discuss regarding how COVID changed the lives of youth in the U.S. First is the unemployment rate in the United States. So according to youth.gov, the source that I mentioned before, the employment difficulties for youth ages from 16 to 24 intensified in the aftermath of COVID-19. But the unemployment rates have returned to pre-pandemic levels as of April 2021. So that is a good sign at least. However, the unemployment rates among youth ages 16 to 24 remain higher than among other age groups, such as age groups from 25 to 44 or age groups from 45 to 64. Second aspect I want to talk about is the youth schooling in the United States and how that's affected by COVID-19. So according to America's Promise Alliance, almost 25% of young students are feeling disconnected from school communities, school adults, and other youths in class due to online learning environment that started after COVID-19. So that's basically the online like classes that have started kind of makes students feel disconnected, separated because they don't really get to interact with like in real life with other students and other people. And the next aspect I want to talk about is the depression during COVID-19 in the United States. So according to Mental Health America, mental health of young people is worsening. So for example, to be specific, 9.7% of youth in the United States in 2021 have severe major depression compared to 9.2 in 2020. So it increased 0.5 percentage point from previous year to 2021. Also, youth ages 11 to 17 especially have been more likely than any other age group to exhibit moderate to severe symptoms of anxiety and depression during COVID-19. So COVID-19 has significantly affected the mental health and depression of youth in the US.
네, 지금까지 각국의 청년 현안에 대해 이야기를 들어보았습니다. 코로나 시대를 살아가는 청년 세대라는 말이 나올 정도로 코로나는 은평구 지역 청년의 삶뿐만 아니라 각국의 청년들의 삶을 광범위하게 변화시킨 것 같습니다. 그럼 지금부터 은평구 청년 네트워크 위원님들과 함께 의견 및 은평구 청년 실태에 대해 들어보는 시간을 가지도록 하겠습니다. 문소희 위원님, 각국 코로나 청년들의 상황 어떻게 보셨는지요?
네, 말씀하신 대로 코로나는 우리 모두의 삶 전반을 변화하게 했지요. 특히 청년들에게는 아무래도 해외 청년들이 모두 말씀하신 일자리 문제가 가장 심각하고 그렇게 와닿았던 것 같습니다. 일본의 경우 비정규직에 대한 부정적인 사회적 인식으로 청년들에게 일자리 문제가 더욱 부담으로 다가가는 것 같은데 이는 우리나라도 마찬가지라고 생각합니다. 그리고 또 이탈리아는 청년의 실업률이 30%에 달했다고 하니 그 심각성이 매우 놀랐습니다. 그리고 또 청년에게 미친 부정적인 영향과 체감은 우리의 예상보다 더 클 거라고 생각이 들었는데요. 싱가포르 사례에서 나타난 식음료 산업 및 도소매 산업의 계약직 일자리에서의 변화는 아무래도 당장의 학업을 영위하기 위한 수단이었던 대학생들에게 얼마나 큰 위험으로 다가왔을지 그리고 또 위기로 다가왔을지 그 심각성은 참 축축하기도 어렵습니다. 네, 이러한 부정적 변화는 우리한테서도 찾아볼 수 있었습니다. 2020 서울 청년 실태조사에 따르면 서울의 20대 청년 중 청년의 10명 중 4명이 코로나19로 인해 소득이나 근로시간 감소, 고용 취소, 해고 등을 경험했다고 합니다. 또 그리고 올해 제가 은평구 거주 청년 800명을 대상으로 설문조사를 수행했었는데요. 거기서 코로나19로 인해 노동환경의 부정적 변화를 한 가지라도 경험한 경우가 49%로 나타나는 등 은평구 청년도 코로나19로 인해 노동환경에 심각한 변화를 겪었음을 살펴볼 수 있었습니다.
네, 말씀 감사드립니다. 다음은 전봉석 위원님 의견 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
네, 저는 이탈리아에 늦어지고 있는 청년 독립 시기에 대한 내용이 흥미로웠습니다. 독립의 시기를 놓쳐 사회적 독립이 늦어진다면 사회 구성원으로서 주체적인 삶을 살기보다는 가족이나 다른 사회 구성원에게 의존하는 삶을 살게 되지 않을까 하는 우려의 생각이 들었습니다. 캥거루족이라는 말 다들 아실 거라고 생각합니다. 높은 취업 문턱으로 인해 청년들의 독립이 더욱 힘들어지고 있습니다. 성인이 되면 독립한다는 공식, 청년의 생애 주기가 점점 변화되고 있으며 코로나로 인해 더욱 심각해지는 것 같습니다. 캥거루족 청년들이 부모에게서 독립한 청년보다 자존감은 낮고 스트레스 및 우울 정도는 더 높다는 연구 결과를 본 적이 있습니다. 은평구에서도 청년들의 독립 시기 평균 연령에 따른 조사 분석이 필요하지 않을까라는 생각이 들었습니다. 저도 문소희 의원님처럼 은평구 청년들의 주거 현안에 대해 말씀드리고 싶습니다. 문소희 위원님께서 출간 예정이신 연구보고서 자료에 따르면 은평구 주거 빈곤 청년 가구 비율은 서울시 25개 자치구 중 17위, 청년 1인 가구 비율은 15위인 것으로 나타났습니다. 특히 전 연령 1인 가구 중 청년 1인 가구의 비율이 굉장히 높았으며 비주택에 거주하는 청년 1인 가구의 경우 2017년 65.3%에서 2018년 65.6%, 그리고 2019년 68.2%로 꾸준히 증가하는 것으로 나타났습니다.
네, 말씀 감사드립니다. 다음으로는 김하림 위원님의 의견 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
네, 학교를 다니고 있는 미국 청년들 중 25%가 단절됨을 느낀다는 이야기, 이탈리아 청년의 40.2%가 심리적 불안, 우울감을 느끼면서 일본의 경우에는 여성 자살률이 15%, 청년 자살률이 25%나 증가했다는 사실에 굉장히 놀랐습니다. 개인적으로는 취업난, 주거난뿐만이 아니라 사회적 단절 또한 영향을 미친 것 같은데요. 코로나19 이후 모임과 네트워크의 감소로 인해 청년들은 더욱 사회적으로 단절되고 있는 것 같습니다. 지난해 우리나라의 사망자 수가 처음으로 30만 명을 넘어서 이 통계를 작성한 이래로 역대 최대치를 기록했다는 기사를 본 적이 있습니다. 한국의 자살 사망률은요, OECD 국가 중 여전히 1위를 차지하고 있는데요. 우려스러운 건 40대 이상의 자살률은 모두 줄었는데 30대 이하, 특히 10대, 20대 청년들의 자살률이 크게 높아졌다고 합니다. 전문가들은 이 상황이 팬데믹 상황이 불러온 고용 절벽과 고용 불안, 이에 젊은 층들이 경제에 처한 이 좌절감을 느끼는 것을 원인으로 지적하고 있습니다. 또한 이 40세 이상에서는 자살률이 낮아지고 30대 이하의 자살률이 높아지는 게 청년들의 경제적 기반이 중장년층보다 더 취약하기 때문일 거라 분석을 하는데요. 사회적 거리두기로 대면 서비스 업종이 타격이 굉장히 큰데 특히 20대 여성들의 실직률이 높았던 점이 이러한 전문가들의 분석을 뒷받침해 주는 것 같습니다. 우울증 환자 또한 25세부터 29세 여성 환자가 2017년도에 비해서 현재는 175%나 증가했다고 합니다. 코로나로 인한 사망자는 2,700여 명으로 집계되고 있습니다. 하지만 코로나 팬데믹 현상으로 인한 우울증과 자살 등 숨겨진 죽음을 고려해본다면 코로나 시대의 가장 중요한 부분은 정신건강이 아닐까 하는 생각을 해봅니다.
네, 좋은 말씀 감사드립니다. 지금까지 은평구 청년들의 말씀 잘 들어보았습니다. 이상으로 1부를 마치겠습니다. 잠시 휴식하신 후 2부를 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 네, 그럼 지금부터 은평구 청년 국제포럼 2부를 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 2부에서는 코로나에 대응하여 각국에 수립한 청년 정책들을 돌아보고 이에 대한 청년들의 의견을 들어보며 은평구의 청년 정책이 나아갈 방향성에 대해 논의해보고자 합니다. 그럼 지금부터 국제포럼 2부 코로나에 대응하여 각국 청년 정책을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 해외 각국의 이야기를 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
But the university, but the student can access the online teaching resources from various universities in different universities. So before the pandemic, they may only be able to attend the modules offered by our university, and now they have better access to the online teaching materials, the virtual learning systems in all universities. And the government also opened different platforms to offer this kind of services. So I think there's a change on the teaching system. As you might be aware that in China, most of the universities here are public universities, and the private sector cannot enter into the higher education system. But now, since the COVID-19 and because of the supply chain disruptions, and the country is more aware of our supply chain dependence. So the country has relocate more resources in vocational education and also invite private sectors to get involved in this and invest in this sector. In the same time, the country also invite a lot of pioneers in the industry to also get involved in vocational education, and they can also issue a certificate for vocational education students for them to find job easily after they finish education. So young people are more aware of their living standards. And the country offered a lot of those kind of what we call shared property right houses to young people when they start up their companies or when they start to build their careers. It is a little bit difficult, financially difficult to find places to live. So those kind of housing plans have been initiated across the country to support young people. And this is something similar to the social housing systems in Western countries, but it is slightly different. And for some of the countries, if you live, you can rent the houses provided by government at a very low rate, rental rate. And then after a few years, you already live there and you get familiar with the situation. And this is not, well, this is a very decent housing provided to young people. So once they earn some money, they build their career, they can also purchase this property directly from the government at a comparatively better price. So we also have such kind of housing plans for young people as well.
So of course, the Italian government has been established a number of policies to support the youth against the COVID-19. Some measures include the Solidarity Corps and also the civil service. These are instruments to help young people go back into the work market. So they are supported by the government when they enter the work market. However, in addition to the Italian government supporting youth, it is also important to mention the European Union Recovery Fund. So this Recovery and Resilience Plan, financed by the European Union, will support all EU countries, especially youth, including youth in Italy, to overcome employment and growth aspects of the post-COVID scenario. And so it actually can be considered as the main or first beneficiary in absolute terms of the instruments of the recovery, because this recovery will guarantee resources for almost 200 billion to be used in the next 7 years. And a large part of this, almost 70 billion, are actually non-repayable grants. So they really will support youth. And especially because around 30% of these resources will support digital transformation in which youth are highly involved, not only in the field of research, so they will support more research opportunities for young people in Italy, but also digital transformation for, let's say, public administration, the justice reform system, infrastructure, so that it will be an enabling environment for young people recovering from the crisis.
So there are some policies that I have found related to coronavirus for youth. So at different times, for example, going back to what I had mentioned before about people, households that don't have access to internet, there was a period of time where local and prefectural governments were setting young people up with, for example, Wi-Fi routers so that they could complete their online classes. So that's one example of like a more local initiative that was made. So in terms of addressing suicide among young people, there is a government center which is called the Japanese Suicide Countermeasure Promotion Center, and that was established in April of 2020 to respond to that. There's also one more specifically looking at youth unemployment. So the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare Committee has opened up a research committee on future youth employment. And within that, they have a lot of different strategies to try to get young people who weren't able to find jobs during the pandemic back into the workforce. Yes.
Actually, during the corona, they created a lot of online platforms for, be it whether is it youth or for anyone looking for a job, but particularly for the youth. You know, they realized that the problem with youth unemployment, they look at it as short term, because a lot of the times when you graduate, you tend to go through different jobs because you're trying to figure out what specific job would suit your capabilities. So to sort of reduce that, because during a pandemic you can't have people sort of swapping jobs so often, so they created this platform to make sure that the youth would have the not only just advice, but the ability to go start traineeships or to start internships, or they have relevant information about certain jobs, so that they are aware of what is it they're going into. So you wouldn't start a job and be like, oh, this is not for me, and then you end up having to go back being unemployed and start looking for a new job again. So they created, I was looking at, there's a lot of youth employment enrichment trainings. They set up a couple of training programs, they set up a couple of mentoring programs. So one of it I was looking at is called Reach Community Services. This company, they help the youth 17 to 24 with job employment, make sure that these people the youth that they deal with gain good skills, relevant skills, that they are given good advice, and they're told, okay, if you're interested in this industry, these are the kind of training you should go for, this is the kind of skills you should develop. So there's so much of advice given to them. They make sure they match you with a coach for 6 to 9 months. So the coach will sit with you and sort of better prepare you for something as simple as interviews or your resumes, or to better equip the youth with knowledge about the job market, because they're going to be entering the job market. So it's a couple of things actually. I was reading the Singapore Workforce Development Agency. It's quite a long word for me to remember, but they created workshops and career fairs. It's all virtual because to deal with the pandemic, but they were starting to make everything digital, and they were starting to make it more accessible and make sure that whether you're a 2019 graduate or whether you're a 2020 graduate, you don't have to worry about not being able to find a job or not being able to develop relevant skills, because all of us, when you need the work experience, and that's something very difficult to get during a pandemic. How are you going to start a traineeship or an on-site work experience? So the career fairs and the workshop and the training grants they give you, it allows them to be better prepared and be better equipped when they start applying for jobs, so that you don't end up falling into this whole group of people where the certain job seekers are always say certain companies, they want this and that, and I don't have it because I'm a fresh graduate. So what this training does is to make sure that they have all the relevant skills that companies are looking for, and that they won't fall into that disadvantage of I don't have what companies need, or because I'm a fresh grad, because of a pandemic, I don't get the luxury to have work experiences. So they take a person in, they look at what their interest is, they look at what their strengths are, and they match them to the relevant job and company. And then in that company, they start learning, they start this traineeship, and then if it's possible, it turns into a full-time employment. So it completely cuts out the duration of how long a person is unemployed while they're looking through jobs. It sort of streamlines the thing, make sure that you find something that's specific to you, what you're looking for, and you don't have to go through various attempts to find jobs. And basically, pre-pandemic situation has been sort of removed, so those are the things they've been doing. And another initiative that they did, which I thought was quite cool, was they created this entrepreneurship startup scheme. So they realized that not every youth is going to have the same career path. Some people might want to start a startup company, start up an innovation and innovative. So they created this grant scheme to give them sort of the starting capital to help youth to create whatever it is they're interested in, whatever their ideas are, to help them jumpstart it. Because during a pandemic, it's quite difficult to even entertain an idea or entertain a business idea. So when you have an initiative like this, the youth will be like, okay, I don't have to take up any job. I can still sort of, if I have an interest in starting a programming company, I can still do it, because I've got this initiative to help me fund my initial startup. So there are a couple of Singapore's quite comprehensive. We have a lot of skills and job packages and virtual job fairs and career fairs, and they made it such a way that whether you're a recent graduate 2019 or you know even 2021, this year group that has been affected by the pandemic, they make sure that these people have the relevant help, and you know that they don't graduate into an industry where they have no prospects, or they have no opportunities, or they have to sit and worry, okay, there's a pandemic happening, I probably will never get a job. They don't have to worry, because you've got a lot of programs set up by the government to make sure that they get the relevant help, and that they can find a relevant job, and they don't have to be so uncertain and stressed out. So yeah.
Yes, so the one that I am most familiar with is regarding COVID-19 vaccine policy. So according to Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which is like the head office that controls the diseases and vaccination and those kind of things in the United States, the U.S. government has been encouraging youth ages 12 and older to get COVID vaccines. And I think that's a very important and significant policy against COVID-19, because vaccination is one of the most important measures against or to fight against COVID-19, and the government has been encouraging youths to do that.
네, 그럼 지금부터 코로나에 대응한 각국의 청년 정책에 대한 의견을 나눠보는 시간을 가지도록 하겠습니다. 문서위원님, 각국의 청년 정책에 대해 어떻게 보셨는지요?
네, 일본, 싱가포르, 중국 등 각국 모두 실업자인 청년에게 중점을 둔 다양한 정책을 시행하고 있는 것 같습니다. 일본의 경우 실업자 대상 취업지원센터를 설립해서 실업 청년 맞춤형 교육 정책들을 시행하고 있고, 싱가포르의 경우에는 YEET 청소년 고용 강화 훈련이라고 제가 들었는데요. 그거를 통해 청년 구직자 맞춤형 교육 제공, 그리고 ACE를 통해 창업 정보를 종합적으로 제공함을 볼 수 있었습니다. 또 중국과 이탈리아의 경우에도 취업 활성화를 위해 다양한 교육을 제공하고 있는 것 같습니다.
네, 혹시 이 중 흥미롭게 보신 정책이 있으실까요?
네, 저는 개인적으로 싱가포르의 청년 대상 정책 중에 수요가 있는 회사를 발굴해서 청년들에게 연수나 업무 경험의 기회를 제공하는 점 등이 되게 흥미로웠습니다. 유사하게 올해 은평구에서도 대학생들을 대상으로 지역 내 스타트업 기업들과 스타트업 기업의 인턴십 기회를 제공하는 정책을 시행했었고, 그리고 프로그램에 참여한 스타트업 기업과 지역 청년들이 모두 다 만족도가 높았다고 그렇게 전해 들었습니다. 그리고 사례를 보면서 생각이 들었는데요. 청년의 각기 다른 사회적 상태와 니즈에 따라 다양하고 방대한 일자리 분야 정책들이 시행되는 만큼 맞춤형 정책 지원 제안 또는 정책을 선별적으로 보다 쉽게 돕는 정보 전달 체계 구축이 매우 필수적이라고 생각이 들었습니다. 은평구에서도 작년부터 은평구청 홈페이지에서 청년 탭을 신설해서 서울시와 은평구의 청년이라면 누구나 모두 다 쉽게 활용할 수 있는 다양한 청년 정책들을 안내하고 있는 것으로 알고 있습니다.
네, 말씀해주신 홈페이지 청년 탭 신설, 그리고 대학생 청년 인턴십 정책의 경우 작년 은평구 청년 네트워크 4기에서 제안한 정책의 일환입니다. 자체 설문조사를 시행을 했었는데요. 그 결과 지역 청년들이 일자리 관련 정책에 참여하기 힘든 이유가 정보 습득의 어려움, 그리고 학업과 병이 어렵다는 점, 이 두 가지 항목을 좀 큰 이유로 제안을 했었고요. 일자리 분과에서 정책적 논의를 통해 은평구청 홈페이지 청년 탭 신설 및 대학생들의 방학 기간에 맞춘 유연 근무 형식의 대학생 인턴십 프로그램 정책을 제안을 했었습니다. 실제로 은평구청에서 은평구 청년 네트워크 4기 의견을 들어주셔서 시행해준 정책이라 할 수 있겠습니다. 그리고 은평구 청년 네트워크 인스타그램에서도 참 청년들이 쉽게 많은 양질 정보를 얻고 있는 상황입니다. 네, 다음은 전봉석 위원님의 의견 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
네, 저는 중국 청년들의 부담을 덜어주기 위해 공유재산권 주택을 제공한다는 점이 흥미로웠습니다. 중국의 공유주택은 공유주거와 공유오피스가 더해진 개념이고 특히 사물인터넷 기술을 도입한 것으로 알고 있습니다. 특히 학교 건물을 리모델링하여 소형 아파트 및 공용 창업 공간으로 제공하고 있다고 합니다. 은평구에도 청년들을 위한 다양한 사회적 주택, 청년주택이 존재하고 있습니다. 특히 청년 창업인의 집은 은평구 지역의 청년 창업인들에게 시세보다 저렴한 가격으로 주거를 제공해주고 있습니다. IoT 기술을 도입한 공유 주거 형태, 그리고 추후 청년들이 사회에 진출하여 재정적 여유가 있었을 때 머물렀던 장소를 구매할 수 있다는 점 등이 한국과 중국의 차이점이라고 생각합니다. 특히 IoT 기술을 적용한 공유주택 형식은 한국에서도 시도해 볼 만한 정책이라고 생각합니다.
네, 그럼 다음으로 김아리 위원님 의견 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
네, 일본, 중국, 싱가포르를 포함한 모든 해외 국가의 청년들이 코로나로 인해 사회적 환경의 불확실성이 커지고 있으며 이로 인해 생기는 코로나 블루는 우울증, 자살 등의 사회적 문제를 또한 유발하고 있습니다. 그런 만큼 각국에서 청년들을 위한 다양한 정신건강 정책들을 펼치고 있는데요. 중국에서 진행하고 있는 대학의 학생들 및 교직원을 대상으로 시행하는 정신건강 상담 정책은 한국의 대학 학생 상담센터에서 진행하고 있는 것과 동일한 정책으로 보여집니다. 일본의 경우 자살 예방 기본법을 통해서 국가가 종합적인 대책을 수립해서 자살의 사전 예방, 또 위기 대응, 자살 미수자라든지 유족한테도 사후 대응과 대처를 위한 정책들을 추진하고 있다고 하는데요. 정신건강의 경우 취업, 주거, 인간관계 등 다양한 요인이 존재하는 만큼 포괄적인 정책적 접근이 필요하다고 생각이 됩니다. 그리고 지역사회에서의 사회 안전망 강화가 필수적인 것 같다는 생각도 듭니다. 은평구에서도 정신건강복지센터를 통해서 정신건강 강좌 그리고 상담 등이 진행되고 있다고 들었는데요. 다독인 사업을 통해 온라인 상담뿐만 아니라 심리검사, 방문 상담 등의 다양한 정신건강 프로그램들이 운영되고 있다고 하니까요. 이런 정책들이 우울증이나 또 코로나 블루를 겪고 있는 은평구 지역의 청년들을 위해 조금 포괄적이면서 조금 더 튼튼한 사회 안전망이 형성되어 주기를 기대해 봅니다. 네, 마지막으로요. 일본의 자살 예방 기본법 제2조 기본 이념 부분을 말씀드리고 싶은데요. 자, 잠깐 한번 읽어드리도록 하겠습니다. 자살 대책은 개인의 삶을 포괄적으로 지원하는 대책으로서 모든 사람이 존중받으며 삶의 보람과 희망을 갖고 살아가는데 방해가 되는 요인을 해소하기 위해 개인을 지원하고 이러한 지원 환경을 충실히 갖추고 확대하는 취지로 실시되어야 한다. 자살 대책은 보건, 의료, 복지, 교육, 노동, 기타 관련 정책과 유기적으로 연계되어야 하며 통합적으로 실시되어야 한다. 네, 이상입니다.
네, 그럼 지금부터 위원님들의 국제포럼 참석 소감 잠깐 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 우선 하림 위원님 먼저 의견 감사드리겠습니다.
네. 또 소감을 말하라니까 또 조금 약간 되게 부담스러운데, 네. 어쨌든 이 코로나 상황이 굉장히 길어지면서 많이들 피로도가 쌓였을 거라고 생각이 듭니다. 저 또한 그러했는데요. 굉장히 평소에 다른 국가에서는 어떤 정책으로 청년들을 위해서 이 코로나 상황에 대응을 하고 있는지 궁금했었는데 그 점에 대해서 이번 기회를 통해서 저도 배운 것도 많고 또 한 번 우리 은평구 청년들의 입장을 대변해서 청년들의 어떤 정신 건강적인 부분이라든지 또 우울증 문제라든지 이런 것들에 대해서 한 번 더 생각해 볼 수 있는 계기가 돼서 저도 굉장히 영광스러운 자리였다고 생각합니다. 이상입니다.
네, 감사드립니다. 그리고 다음은 문서 위원님 의견 부탁드리겠습니다.
네. 네, 소감이요. 일단 저는 편집위원장 문소희인데요. 편집위원장이기 전에 제가 평소에 관심을 가지고 있고 일을 하고 있는 주거 분야, 그래서 주거분과위원으로도 활동을 하고 있어요. 이 네트워크를 참여하면서 이 지금 지역 현안이라면 코로나가 가장 크겠죠. 이번 국제포럼 주제도 코로나고요. 그래서 이런 지역 현안들이랑 그리고 평소 관심을 가지고 있는 분야들을 지역 청년들과 같이 의논하고 그거를 고민할 수 있는 자리였어서 그 네트워크 활동이 너무 좋았는데 이번 포럼을 통해서는 그게 해외 청년으로까지 확대가 된 것 같아요. 그래서 해외 청년들과 함께 소통하고 또 의견도 나눌 수 있었던 자리인 것 같아서 더욱 즐겁고 행복했습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 그리고 전봉석 위원님 의견 부탁드리겠습니다.
네, 보통 이런 국제 포럼에 형태가 이렇게 사실 편한 자리만은 아니잖아요. 그래서 찍는 저도 이렇게 편하지는 못했던 것 같습니다만은 이 어떤 영상이 보시는 분들한테는 조금 편한 영상이고 어떤 본인의 상황이나 이런 부분들도 좀 돌아볼 수 있는 시간이 되었으면 좋겠습니다. 이상입니다.
Okay, so first I think it's a very meaningful matter for us to communicate with the people of the world, the youth of the world, and we know more about other countries use their opinions on the COVID-19 and also on the policies of their countries on youth. And also, I think it's all in all, I think it's very meaningful. So, and I learned a lot in this forum. So I feel very happy to attend this forum. Yes.
I think it's very meaningful for me today. I think to communicate here, I can know that different countries' opinion about COVID-19. I think it can explore my opinion too, and I feel pleasure. Thank you.
I think the current government has made a very timely forum on this topic. I think the youth, not only in China but also across the world, are facing more uncertainties during the pandemic. Also, because the pandemic is ongoing, and this kind of uncertainties, anxieties might continue among young people. So I think this is a very timely forum to focus on young people and how this pandemic changed the young people, and also what are the government reactions towards this. And we also can learn from other countries' experiences and know how the young people are dealing with the pandemic uncertainties and how the other governments are reacting to this. So I think this is a very timely event and a very good opportunities to know each other's best practices.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would like to thank you for your invitation. And I think this forum is a great opportunity to bring the view of different youth from different parts of the world together and express their opinion about a policy problem that's directly impacting them. And so I really wish the best for this forum, and I hope to see the success of it and to be part of future events that will be organized. Thank you.
My impression about the forum, yeah, I think it's so great and so important to pay attention to the issues that are faced by youth right now, and also to incorporate the voices of so many young people in talking about what the world is going to look like after Corona. And I think that it's so important to invest in young people now who are going to need to be the ones who are building societies up in the future and helping in this recovery process. Because the needs right now for young people are so high, and ensuring that the future is going to be stable really rests on giving young people the support that they need right now. So I think it's really, it's great to be able to look collectively at different countries and say, what are the issues, what are the challenges being faced by young people, what's being done to help them, and try to think collectively about, what our individual governments and societies can do, and how can we learn from one another going forward.
But it's a very good forum, it helps people realize that no matter which country you're from and no matter what age group you are, all of us are going through the same sort of issues. I'm sure the youth in Korea are feeling the same sort of anxieties and worries and stress that the youth in Singapore are facing. So you can think culturally we're so different, or culturally that racially we're all very different, but actually we all have the same sort of worries, we all have the same sort of anxieties, and this forum allows us to bring people from different parts of the world, and you get to hear them talk about the youth climate in their country, and I think it's very unifying. You feel less lonely. And it's also full of information. If you find out I found out a lot of information about Singapore and what we do for our youth, particularly, how our government responded to Corona affecting youth unemployment. You learn a lot. You find out, there are initiatives, and these are the things that various government do, and you can even take inspiration from that. If you find out a country has a certain program or scheme that they have for the youth, you'll be thinking, why can't my country try something like that? So I think this forum is very useful. No one really. This forum is very youthful as well. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's youthful and useful, it's good. I think it consolidates a lot of information, and I quite enjoyed myself reading about youth in Singapore, and thank you for asking me to do this. It's not only an honor, but I hope I'm of some use, and my information that I provided is at the very least entertaining and engaging. Even if you didn't learn much, you at least know that Singapore, we're relatively well prepared in dealing with issues, with pandemic related issues and how it affects the youth. So yeah.
Yes, so I thought that this forum is a great, a venue or great platform for youth around the world and in Seoul to interact and express their opinions about different kinds of issues, especially from this one, especially youth and COVID-19. So I think this is a very good initiative, and I think it's a very it is very encouraging to see that this kind of forum exists to gather youths around the world and in Seoul together to interact and exchange their opinions and thoughts. So I thought it was really good, and I've really enjoyed being part of it, and I'm actually honored to be part of it as well. Thank you.
네, 말씀 감사드립니다. 저도 서울시 은평구라는 한 자치구에서 이렇게 각국의 청년들과 정책적 논의를 할 수 있었다는 점에서 굉장히 뜻깊고요. 그리고 또 청년 네트워크의 또 활동에 좀 저변을 확대할 수 있는 좋은 기회가 아니었나 생각이 듭니다. 그럼 이상으로 제1회 은평구 청년 국제포럼을 마치도록 하겠습니다. 이번 포럼이 은평구 청년 정책에 참고할 만한 정책적 시사점 도출에 밑거름이 되기를 기대해 봅니다. 참석해 주신 모든 분들 감사합니다. 수고하셨습니다.